it's funny, but I am so thankful that I've gone through this, because now I can sit across a table from some 18-year-old kid who's going through this and be like, dude, I know that pain. And I can sit there and give a perspective. It's like, dude, this is a dark tunnel, but this is just a tunnel.
Between the Grooves is hosted by James Curtis, music director and morning man in the Greater Toronto Area on Joy Radio, and Ayiesha Woods, Grammy-nominated singer, songwriter, and musician. Together, they talk with artists and industry insiders to discover our connection between music and faith. You can connect with us on Facebook or Twitter at Between Grooves. Now, here's James and Ayiesha.
Hello, James.
Hey, you're back. We're back. Yay.
I am back. Yes, indeed. Did you have a great weekend?
It was a good weekend. Let me think. Had to do some chores in the morning. Had to clean the bathroom. And we, as you know, renovated our bathrooms, or a couple of bathrooms last year. And so the one bathroom that I was responsible for, this was a list that my wife gave me. It was the honey-do list.
A honey-do list.
So I was responsible for cleaning the shower, and the shower in this bathroom, the ceiling's been raised. It used to be the bulkhead above, and so they ripped that out because there was nothing in it anyways, and so they raised the ceiling. So it's too high for me to reach now, so I had to get a ladder. And so I was cleaning this thing and the walls and whatnot. And I think I twisted a muscle in my back because I was in pain on Sunday, and I think it was because of that. Just my lower back, and it's getting better, but you know, and I wasn't sure. Maybe I slept on it wrong or whatever. But I'm kind of thinking that's what happened. But I was adamant that, you know, okay, we got chores to do. I'm going to make sure I'm finished everything by 12 noon because I want to kick back and relax and do nothing for the rest of the day. I was finished at 12:05. 12:05 I was done.
Good for you.
Yep. It was a good weekend. What about you?
Well, good. I just got back from a songwriter, a worship leader songwriter retreat.
Oh, nice.
And it was pretty sweet. Just forged some really, really great relationships, and then had church on Sunday. And I don't know, do you ever have like times when you're in service and you think that it's going to go one way and it ends up going a different direction?
Yeah, usually I'm very optimistic.
That kind of a Sunday.
Were you optimistic and then kind of let down afterwards?
Yes. First service, at least. Thank God for him being a redeemer. Yeah. You know, second service was a whole lot better, I felt, than first service. But there was just a push, you know. We had to push through some things, and but it ended up being great.
And don't forget what you see. Don't forget what you see is not necessarily what everybody else sees either. Like somebody might have walked away from the first service thinking, wow, that was amazing. That was phenomenal. Right. And you're just looking at it saying, well, that's not quite what we had planned. And I don't think it went well because I'm looking at it from my eyes, not God's eyes, right?
Yes.
So,
right.
You know, our episode this week, we've got a couple of guys from Rocky Mountain Christian Church, known as Rocky Worship, Luke and Nick, and they are very, very involved in their church as well in ministry, and they are worship leaders. And so, you know, interesting that you say how things didn't go according to plan. One of the things we'll find out from these guys is how things don't necessarily go according to plan in your own life, and how things can happen that just like throw you for a loop. And that's what we're going to get into with Luke and Nick from Rocky Mountain Worship. Somebody else sang that a lot better. Oh, sorry.
Sorry. Oh, that Sound of Music. I went, what is that? What is that?
Yeah. You know, that's a great movie, and I like to watch that every Christmas.
One of my favorites.
But my kids won't let me watch it anymore.
Really?
Hey, why is it a Christmas movie? Because I thought the same thing this year.
Why is it a Christmas movie?
Yeah.
That's a good question.
I think because it's long. Because when else do you have time to watch something that long?
That's true.
A good point.
I guess, you know. I mean, you could see it anytime, I suppose. But it's just that happy, good feeling type movie that you would watch.
Totally.
That's a great movie.
Staple.
Yeah, it is. Anyways, one of the things that I've seen happen, and I've seen news reports happen over the last little while, I guess since the pandemic began, overall, it seems church attendance is down, and I would say dramatically in some instances.
Yeah.
I've seen many church leaders leaving ministry. I would suggest that some of the times that's because the church couldn't afford them anymore. They couldn't afford to pay them, and so they were let go. I suspect some of them couldn't handle the change, couldn't handle the shift. And that's not really admirable, I would say, because everybody else has had to adapt. I don't want to sound sarcastic and demeaning or anything like that, but I think, everybody in their jobs have had to adapt and change. And I think a lot of times pastors, church leaders get so caught up in this is the way they do their job. During the week, okay, they got Mondays off. That's a rest day for them because they had to work Sunday, even though, and again, I sound sarcastic here, even though a lot of volunteers work a full day the previous day as well. And then during the week, they've got their process. This is what they do each day. And one of the days is preparing a sermon for the Sunday. And then, of course, Sunday service happens and it's the same old. And again, it sounds sarcastic, but what I'm trying to bring across, I suppose, is the fact that a lot of churches just have the same order of service that they do every week. You start with a prayer, but you're gonna have praise and worship, followed by announcements, followed by offering potentially if you still do that, and then the sermon, and then closing song. Bang, you're off to the races. That was your service. Great, successful. Pat yourself on the back, and that's what they do, and that's all they know how to do, right? And so I think what's happened with the pandemic is they didn't know what to do. So I'm under stress. What am I going to do? And so I guess what we want to talk about, and you guys have been through this, is talking about church leadership and what has gone on with you guys. Because I know there's been depression, there's been anxiety for a lot of people in different capacities. How has that impacted you guys?
Well, I would love for Luke to share, because he's got his unique story that I think even started before pandemic, but was just kind of pushed over the edge. There was weird things that we experienced because on one hand, we as a staff, we probably grew closer together during the pandemic because we, just like everyone, we went online, and so we were two campuses at our church, so we were able to combine staffs for the Sunday staffs, the stage staffs, and it was a blast.
Yeah, it was awesome
because all of a sudden we have just exceptional, volunteers that are just ready to go. Because we just went to one campus and we were recording the service and putting it online. In that regard, it was really fun for about the first, I don't know how long, and then there was this sense of maybe it was too easy. In some regard,
we were only doing one service.
Yeah, and so there, after a while, you walk away on a Sunday and you're like, I don't really feel like I worked very hard. So that was one dynamic, and then going back to in person. Yeah, it was a little strange, but then once we went back to in person, and then the attendance was way low, and then we didn't have the fun mega band, we called it, each and every week. Then it was kind of a big gut check. And Luke, maybe that's when things, I don't know exactly the timeline, but you went through a really specific, difficult season.
Yeah, absolutely. COVID was, like Nick said, it was kind of fun at the beginning for us. That sounds so weird, but we had, we're all best friends here on staff. And so we just got to work even closer together. And that was so cool. But when we went back to in-person gatherings, it was kind of crazy because, before COVID, things were we were experiencing growth, and we were experiencing like a new season of just excitement and momentum as a church. And then obviously, just with every other church in the world, that all came to a screeching halt, and church people just started to rethink what they thought about church. And it's am I going to go back? Am I actually going to be a part of this? Or am I just maybe I'll just do this online thing, and then eventually they're not, you know what I mean? So
I think part of it too is a learning curve, because
for sure,
again, if you're used to doing something in person and then now all of a sudden you have to adapt to new technology and do stuff online, it's not just a snap your finger, you're ready to go. Like there's a big learning curve, whether it be people on staff or even volunteers for that matter.
Yeah, absolutely. So we started going back to normal, and I think that's when things got a little bit weird. So I started experiencing just anxiety and depression and it seemed like a small way. It didn't start off as this just like tidal wave that took me out. I've kind of explained,
slow fade.
Yeah, exactly. Kind of like getting off the interstate on an exit ramp. You know what I mean? That sort. It's like I've been on this highway for a long time, and now I'm just kind of drifting off onto this new road. I don't really know where I am. Kind of feel like the middle of nowhere, and now I'm just off. You know what I mean? And so, as a worship leader, that was really weird because I'm up there every Sunday just singing about the goodness of God and singing about how He's near and He's close. We draw near to Him. He draws near to us. He's near to the brokenhearted. He'll never leave or forsake you. And I was in a really tough spot because I was like, do I believe this right now? You know what I mean? Because things just started to go darker and darker, and to the point where I was, I really needed help. Yeah. And so I don't know if this was all brought on by the pandemic or whatever, but this is when it started. And and like I said, like as a worship leader, it kind of felt like I was like swinging a golf club with my offhand. You know what I mean? Like people in church, they saw me doing it, and they're like, that looks like
golf.
That looks like golf to me. No,
right.
No, it's like they see me up there. They're like, yeah, totally. But on the inside, it's like everything felt so wrong. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I can keep going through the story, but that's kind of how it all started.
So you were able to pinpoint that yourself, or was it other people looking at you, you know, family members or friends that kind of said, hey, you know, you don't seem to be yourself?
Yeah, I think it was a mixture of both, but probably the people in my life that love me the most, they could start seeing things in me. It's like, that's not really Luke. You know, definitely my wife. You know, the things that I started noticing in myself, it's like I just started having more bad days than good days. Like, wow. There would be, you know, weeks at a time where I'm like, I don't know if I could like identify a good day. And that's when I started to like really realize something was off. Like I was more impatient. I was more frustrated easily. Physically, I was just super tired, and I just started to notice like the worst parts of me became the most of me, and and that's when I was like, uh-oh. And then, you know, Nick, him and I work together every day, and Dane as well. He could start seeing things, and more Nick would be like, hey man, are you doing okay? You know, that started to become kind of part of our rhythm. And then, you know, eventually it got to the point where it was just so all consuming to me. And my wife and I were like, dude, I need to get into counseling. Like I need to get into therapy. Like I'm done. Like I can't do this anymore. Like I'm a complete shell of myself. And it's time that, like, obviously I've tried the things to try to get myself out. Maybe I'll pray this pain away. And it just didn't go that way. I know that God can do that. I know that God has the power to step in like that. But at this point, after all of that, man, I'm just thankful that I actually did go through it. And because I can just, I see God through the whole journey. You know what I mean? So
yeah. So was there, apart from just the series of events, was there something in particular that brought you to the point of saying, okay, I need help now?
Like I said, I don't feel like I had any like of these tidal wave moments in this journey. But there were points where it's just like, I'd be sitting at my desk on a Monday, you know, after church, and I'm being like, nobody, like, does anybody care about church anymore? Does anybody want to sing worship songs anymore? Like, what's going on? And I would just be sitting at my desk and be like, I think I'm done with ministry. Like, I'm done. I'm done. Like my friends have quit and they're doing fine. That sort of thing. And I just more and more, I was like, I think I'm done with ministry. And that was definitely like a wake up call for me, because I feel like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? I've committed my life to this thing. And to be having those thoughts, it was kind of jarring to me to be like, whoa, like who's inside of this head right now?
Mm-hmm. Did you get to the point where you were actually kind of looking at, what else could I do for a living?
Yeah. And I think fortunately every single one of my eggs is in this basket. You know what I mean?
Your skill set.
And so,
sure.
I don't have much to offer society.
I don't know. I've seen a lot of people leave ministry and sell cars. So that seems to be
I've been selling the gospel. So,
That's right.
No, but
there you go.
But I did have those days where it's like, what can I do? Like, how do I get out of this? Because I'm over it. And I feel like I'm failing the church. Like, I just feel like I'm a fraud. Like, somebody get a healthy person in here to do this thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, just thankfully, like, there's just so much grace from our leadership and patience and a camaraderie, and our team, just like wherever I was falling short, like they were there to pick up the slack. And honestly, like with a smile on their face, not in a sort of like, get your stuff together, Luke, we got ministry to do. It was so much more gracious. Like I was a part of their ministry, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if I would have that kind of patience.
For sure.
Really?
Because I when I work, I try to work hard. I try to work smart, but I try to work hard and be efficient and everything else. And so I feel at times I'm stretched. I can't take on any more. So if somebody else is not pulling their weight, and they're slacking, and I mean no disrespect here whatsoever.
No, I hear you.
But if somebody's slacking, it's like, okay, pull up your pants, let's go, let's get to work. Just
for sure.
Brush it off, just move on, because we've all got a job to do. And now I'm kind of holding somebody's hand and helping them through something. Yeah. What was it like for the rest of the staff?
Yeah, that's a good question. And the reality is, there are some of those moments. Right. There are those moments when you're just not feeling particularly gracious, that Luke is saying, sometimes it's easy because you're thinking about, obviously we work at a church. So you're thinking about the grace that God shows us, the grace that Jesus offers us. And there's some of those moments when it's like, that's what we need to do right now. But the reality was for Luke, there would be times when we'd have a full team meeting. And so we have musicians, we have production people, and we're all together, and those conversations just get heated. It's like two different languages that people are speaking, and there'd be moments when Luke would just be kind of toe to toe in like a verbal sparring match, right? And Luke is a passionate guy, we all are, but there are moments when it was like there's a little bit more of an edge, and we would, after the meeting, I'd go in Luke's office, and there'd be, I remember one time specifically, I was kind of at the end of my rope, and I'm looking at Luke. I'm like, what is going on? I wasn't yelling. And he was just like, I don't know. Yeah. And it was this clear moment of none of us know what we're doing when it comes to how do we get through this? How do we find health? But it was just sense of, okay, we're going to figure this out. Like what we need to do is let's do the right thing right now. And then we'll take the next step the next day. But at the end, what I want to add to that, though, is I think most likely, I don't know, I can only speak from our experience, but most likely people that are depressed, that are going into work, it's not like they've lost their complete character. It's not like they've lost their complete integrity. Luke was still the person he was. He was just depressed. So that wasn't like he was completely inept. It wasn't like he had no work ethic. He was just struggling. So when you know someone well enough, there's just an easier, when you have a long track record, it's easier to tap into that grace to say, this is still Luke, even though he's depressed. And I believe that we're going to get through it to the other side.
Right. There's a worship pastor friend of mine, and he's writing a book now. And in one of the chapters of his book, he talks about depression and it being prevalent, with worship ministry. And one of the things he said that worked for him was the 3 C's: Christ, through community, and counseling.
That's good.
Yeah, and I was just like, it's definitely more prevalent than not.
Yeah.
And it's something that should be addressed because there is help for it,
Absolutely.
And just because we're in ministry, it doesn't make us exempt to life,
Yeah.
I wish there was a way for more pastors and worship pastors to be able to communicate to one another, hey, my church service stunk this week. Or I was so frustrated with, or just to get it out there, because I feel like what we present is our church is on fire. Every weekend it's hotter than the last weekend. More people got baptized. Blah blah blah. But the reality is, Luke and I come off the stage yesterday, and it was one of those just down weeks. It's so cold here. It's snowing. There's been snow on the ground for like 50 days in a row, and I'm not kidding. And so there's just this general, just like everything just seemed flat.
Somber. Yeah.
Yes. And
yeah.
you can get in your mind.
You sure we weren't at the same church?
Okay, thank you.
Hang on. Did you have snow though? Ayiesha, you didn't have snow?
We didn't have
no, okay.
No, we didn't
I know
have
what
snow.
I know what they're talking about when they talk about snow. I know snow.
Yeah, so there's just that you walk away and there's moments like that. I was looking forward to Sunday.
For sure.
And then you walk away and you're like, that was underwhelming.
Yeah.
And maybe what you're talking about, Ayiesha, as far as that worship pastor saying, it's just, it can get in your head so quickly and so easily.
Sure.
And then the other element that I think is tough for anyone that works, I don't know, I've worked at a church for a long time, so I can only speak from my experience, but I think it's difficult to find community when you are on staff at a church, because you only feel like you can be so honest about what's going on in life, because you would be sharing details about the church that these people are attending.
Yeah.
Right.
And I'm not even saying stuff that's really dark and bad. I just mean like, things are a little funky in the staff right now. Yeah. And you just don't want to tell the average churchgoer that. Or you don't want to say, I'm not happy with my boss right now. Well, it's like, that's the senior pastor. It can be really difficult for people to actually know who you are. That's a challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
That's so good.
Yeah.
But I was so impressed with Luke. I don't know if because there's more to Luke's story, but he was so committed to being open, to being vulnerable, and pursuing counseling. And Luke, I don't want to force your hand here, but you speak really openly about you got on medication pretty early on, right?
Yeah. And when I got onto medication, I feel like that was the turning point in the story, because all of the physical aspects of this anxiety and this depression like leveled out. And so that was like 50% of this like oppression on my brain and my body that was just all of a sudden like just leveled out. So that was pretty crazy. Like I remember the first week that I did that, I was like, oh my gosh, like I feel like a normal person. And I was a little reluctant. Maybe it was just like my pride or whatever, but I was a little reluctant to do it. But then I was at the end of my rope. Like I was ready to just quit everything. You know what I mean? I was hanging on by a thread. And so I was like, okay, I will do whatever. And so I started that, and that partnered with counseling and just my team here is the thing that kind of dug me out of this hole.
Did you? I know of people, I like personally that have had issues, depression or anxiety or some kind of mental instability, and they've gone on meds, and then they thought, you know what, the meds are working, they're great, I can go off the meds now. and then they go back to what they were before because they haven't dealt with anything. The meds were almost masking what the issue is. So,
for sure.
So for you, Luke, I mean,
just putting a Band-Aid on.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm not saying meds are a bad thing because obviously there's a time and a place for medication in situations,
Absolutely.
but it's not necessarily the solution either. It can help, but I don't think it's the, number one solution. That's all you have to do and you'll be set for life type thing. So
you'll just be on medication for life.
Yeah, exactly. So what did you do, Luke, as far as dealing with the root cause? Like to me, that would seem an obvious thing where, okay, I've had something happen in my life. I don't necessarily even know what it is, but I'm not feeling myself. I'm going to counseling. I'm on medication now. But, what about the root cause? What caused this in the first place? And how can I eliminate that from my life so that I can get to a point where I was before?
Yeah, it's a great question. I feel like I said, the medication was took care of a lot of physical stuff. It was kind of felt like a Band-Aid. And then I feel like therapy was like the surgical stuff. Therapy was the stuff where they had to we got into the infection into the the tumor of depression, and we just started tearing that thing out.
That's awesome.
Well, yeah, and I feel like therapy was so hard for me because I've just always really cared what people thought about me, and so getting that honest and getting that vulnerable and just laid open like that was really hard for me. And it took years. I did this for a year and a half, 2 years. But yeah, that felt like the surgery to me. And to think about a cause, that's what's tough about depression sometimes. It's I don't really know what the cause was, because my story is, it was just this steady drift into a darker world. But it just feels like you're in a cloud that you just really can't get out of, And so even when you're okay, I'm gonna start working out and eating healthy and reading my Bible and praying and getting in a small group and working hard, now I'm just overworked and tired and depressed, And so
right.
Trying to do all of the right things didn't really work for me, And so, like I said, the physical nature was kind of taken care of by the medication, and then all of the surgical stuff we took care of in therapy.
So after 2 years now, what changes have you seen in your life? Are you doing things differently? Have you eliminated certain things that you were doing before that contributed to the depression? What's different now than say 2-3 years ago?
It's funny. I'm doing the opposite. I haven't eliminated anything.
That's what George Costanza did in Seinfeld. He did everything opposite, and so that's how he was able to score the girl, because it didn't work.
Exactly.
So
no, it's funny.
George Costanza.
Yes, it's
his
funny.
role model.
I haven't eliminated anything. I'm actually just I feel like I'm living my life again, because when I was feeling this dark, it's I wasn't doing everything was eliminated from my life when I was feeling this way. It's not like I was going down this path and just abusing substances and just neglecting my wife and my family. It's I was just really depressed, and so with that it comes I didn't have fun. I didn't smile. The things that I loved the most about in life, I just didn't want anything to do with them. I love to write music, and I love to just play guitar, and I love to go out to eat and just, walk around a city and whatever. And I had no interest in anything. And then, so what's different now is I love life again. Yeah. And so instead of eliminating things, I'm just adding things. I have more capacity for people again.
There you go.
I have more capacity for ministry and for my family and for my team. And so obviously I'm doing things to stay healthy. I have, tools in place to like acknowledge when I may be feeling that way again. Like, just like red flags. It's like, oh, okay, I felt that before and we're not going back there. So let's go ahead and turn this ship around real quick. But yeah, so now I just feel like I can laugh again and I can, just breathe, just have a deep breath and just wake up every day and just be excited to be a dad and a husband. And, so that's kind of a long answer.
That's great.
Yeah.
Are you able to use your story in ministry now?
Yeah, it's a great question. I spent a lot of time doing student ministry when I over the last 7 years that I've been here. And it's funny, but I am so thankful that I've gone through this because now I can sit across a table from, some 18-year-old kid who's going through this and be like, dude, I know that pain.
Right.
And I can sit there and give a perspective. It's like, dude, this is a dark tunnel, but this is just a tunnel.
Yeah.
Right.
Like there's a light on the other side. It might be like miles away. It might be 2 years away, but this is just a tunnel, dude. And what you have to do is just keep walking that way. And so I think I am thankful that I've gone through this because I can speak on this to someone going through it in a different way. It doesn't make it better than, somebody who hasn't, but it's like, it's just, when you can relate to somebody, walls start to come down a little faster. And
for sure.
I think that I've definitely been able to use this in my ministry. And I mean, in the songs that I write and in the way that I lead worship, like I've experienced the darkness and I've also experienced like the blinding light of Jesus that rescues you and can pull you out of that. And so that's just huge. And I'm, like I said, it's weird to say, but I'm thankful for it.
Now, not in an attempt to impress your boss or anything like that, but do you think
impossible?
Impossible. Do you think maybe part of this could be attributed to the fact that you were working too hard and you just didn't have time for the fun things that kind of brought you down because you weren't doing those fun things?
Maybe. I was working a lot like that. Over the last 3-4 years, I've been, my job has changed and I'm not like doing as much. But I was here, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and like every night of that week, like.
And then on the weekends, you were also adding leading worship for other churches.
Yeah, and teaching guitar. Yeah. And so I was working way too much. And so I definitely think the exhaustion that comes with that, it doesn't help anything, like especially in a fragile state like that. And I think there was part of me that was just like trying to prove something to myself. Like, why are you going and playing at all these churches? Like, why are you driving down to Denver and doing this? Why do you have 15 guitar students right now? Like, what are you doing? And
it's a two-edged sword though, because in our conversations, Luke, you've mentioned that having the productivity of work and what we feel is that high calling of working at a church and doing ministry helps. Right? You're not just sitting at home dwelling.
That was when it was the worst.
Yes. But yeah, exactly. You'd say, so at a lot of churches in here at Rocky, we take Fridays and Saturdays off. So Fridays, I remember you telling me your wife Sydney would go to work. You'd be home alone all day Friday. And those were the darkest days. So it's that two-edged sword.
Isolation.
Yes. That work can give you purpose and give you that sense of I'm accomplishing things and all that. But then overwork contributes to the exhaustion and the depression.
Yes, totally.
But then if you're sitting at home doing nothing, maybe you should have been doing something.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. Like when you're depressed, you just can't.
So do you find now that you block time off for certain things, whether, I've heard, people with depression, whether they're on meds or not, will find that it's good to work out. And so they'll try to work out X amount of time each day or something like that, or they'll want to get out for some fresh air, or they'll want to, establish a date night with their wife and make it more consistent versus just once in a while. Like, have you done something in your schedule now, in your calendar, where you say, okay, I'm blocking off this time. This is the time I'm not working on church stuff. I'm not working on job stuff.
Right.
This is the time this is me time, but to do what I want to do, and not sit around twiddling your thumbs doing nothing and I'm bored, but actually doing something.
Totally. So I kind of mentioned earlier, I have a 6-month-old son at home. It's like I'm a dad now.
Oh,
so
nice.
I have a 6-month-old at home. So that's been crazy.
That'll definitely keep you busy.
Yeah,
definitely. But what's been cool is when I get home, there's a mental shift now where I'm just so home. Like I'm not thinking about the worship set. I'm not thinking about that meeting I have tomorrow, or like when I get home, I am like there with my family. And so that's been a cool shift. Because I do love what I do, and I'm kind of obsessed with what I do. And so that's a thing. But now when I get home, I'm like, you said me time, and right now it's more like we time, because
I understand that.
But now what I do is like when like my wife and my son go to bed, like I'll either go work out, or I will like write songs, or because I do need that time like by myself. So absolutely, pretty much programmed into every day now. I'm taking time to work on just my physical health and my mental health and the health of my family. And so it just, life feels more important now, in a weird way. Like now that I have this little baby, and like I'm just trying to figure out dad life and all of that. And so, I am putting things in place in my life now to just like baseline. It's more like maintenance. You know what I mean? I'm not trying to like revamp this whole system of my life. I'm just trying to maintain things now. It's more of that like proactive instead of reactive idea when it comes to like physical and mental health.
Yeah, I think time management has a lot to play in having a conscious effort in deciding what you do with that time. And especially if you're like a workaholic, like I love my job. I really do. Very often, 10 minutes before closing time, 10 minutes before I'm done, I'll think, I probably have enough time to do this, and this. And it'll only take me an extra 15, 20 minutes. So, I'll leave 15, 20 minutes late from work or whatever. And sometimes I will do it just because I like doing it and I don't have anything on the go when I get home. But other times it'd be like, you know what? No, I'm not going to do that because I want to get out on time, because I want to have that me time, or I want to have that family time, or whatever else I've got on the go. I just want to be structured. Not that I'm, it's more, I guess, putting a line in the sand where I don't want to go to the extreme, because I could easily stay at work another 2-3 hours.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the same way.
And I wouldn't feel bad about it. I'd be exhausted, but I wouldn't feel bad about it, and I'd feel like I accomplished something. But at the end of the day, is it worth it? Mentally, is it worth it for me? Is it worth my my character? Because I'm going to be a different person when I come home now. I'm not going to be happy. Even though I'm happy I accomplished what I accomplished, I'm not going to be happy because now I'm grumpy and I'm tired, and I'm having regrets. Now I'm wishing I didn't stay late.
Right.
For sure.
So I guess for you, it's the structure, putting that line in the sand as far as family, not spending as many hours at the church, and like you say, with the guitar students and leading worship in other churches and stuff, I guess that's scaled down a bit for you?
To almost nothing.
I think there were a lot of people in your life saying, you need to stop that. You need to stop. Have you stopped it? You haven't? Okay, you need to stop it. Over and over and over again. Yeah,
and I've... it's that was one of the things that we, in like towards the end of our time in counseling, my counselor was like, dude, you're not, like, why are you grinding so hard? Like, you are established, you have a family, like you have a great job, like what are you doing? So that was really helpful. And now that I have that more time, like I feel like I've added in more valuable things. Like now I'm not gone for, every night of the week and and one day or in all day Sunday, and then I have like one day with my wife, and you know what I mean? So I feel like there's just more meaningful stuff in my life instead of this just grind and like trying to like prove myself and be everywhere all the time.
All things to all people. Listen,
at all times.
Leave that up to God.
Yeah, that's really good.
Leave that to him.
Absolutely. It makes me think too, just with anyone listening, even if they aren't suffering from a deep depression, I think how we choose our time, when we have some free time, when we have any time that we could say this is me time, what choices are we going to make with that time? Because I know for me, often if I have I have a bunch of kids and they're starting to get older, and it feels like life is just getting faster and faster and faster and more demands.
You said a bunch. How many?
We have 4.
Okay.
So we have 4 girls.
That's the same as you, Ayiesha.
I know.
Is it really?
It's awesome.
So do you think it's a bunch?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Agrees,
Okay,
of course.
good. I don't know if you're like, oh, that's nothing. But if I have any free time, the most easy thing for me to do is grab my phone and just try to like entertain myself. We either catching up on social media, whatever. It's the typical thing. But I know that when I'm finished with that, I'm usually grumpier. I don't feel rested. I don't feel like there's any life-giving. It's just none of that.
Yeah.
All I was doing, in reality, the more and more I can be tuned into this, all I was doing was distracting myself. I was just escaping whatever, situation I was finding myself in, whether it was the house was just so crazy loud or I'm stressed out from work. I just escaped for a minute. And then I'm right back where I was.
Yeah.
But if there are moments when I can go for a walk, listen to a podcast, or something that feels like I'm educating myself, or even just take time in the morning, drink a cup of coffee, and look out the window and just think and allow myself a chance to wake up. All those things, it doesn't even take that much time, but I feel like I've gotten some life back.
Yeah, that's good.
So what are we choosing to put in those spaces? And I think with Luke, you're at a spot right now that you can choose to do things that really do bring life, that bring joy. You're playing your guitar more at home.
Yeah.
You're posting more videos on Instagram of you just like learning something new. And Leon's sitting right next to you and the baby bouncer, and you're playing music. And I'm seeing things in you that you're doing now that you used to do.
Yeah.
But now you're filling your time with those things. And I think you come back on a Monday, maybe you're more refreshed because that's the time you spend on the weekend.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I've realized that, like last year for me, mentally, where it came to ministry and just doing life, I started to get burnt out. And at the very end of the year, I'm like, God, something's gotta change. Like something has to happen. And I heard the Holy Spirit just as clear as day say, try this. And what he gave me, I've been working it ever since the end of the year. And I want to share it with you guys. I mean,
yes, please.
It's just a tool, and it's all about prioritizing and the development of ourselves doing this kingdom work, and I think it's healthy to have these sorts of conversations and community. We were talking about it earlier. It's so important, and you guys don't feel like you're the only ones that have experienced these things.
Right.
So many all over the place have experienced and are experiencing these things. And so God has given us every single thing that we need pertaining to life and godliness. And so I absolutely want to share what he gave me with you guys, because it's helping me, and it could surely help someone else.
And can I add to that, Ayiesha?
Yeah.
No.
Would you say no?
I said no. You got to learn to say no. Everybody wants your time. Everybody needs you. Because just because you're good at doing something doesn't mean you should be doing something, right? And there's so many people that will just, because you're really good at it.
And they'll drain you.
You. And sometimes you just have to say no. And that's been a hard lesson for me over the years, where it's just like, yeah, you know what? I'm not going to get sucked into that.
I've been saying no to Nick a lot lately.
So
it hurts my feelings.
Nick, what's your reaction when you're getting a lot more no's now?
Well, one, he is totally lying right now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but so I don't know how to respond to that. However, I feel like I'm surrounded by a lot of people that are high capacity that do struggle with that. They don't know how to say no. And so I happen to be Luke's boss. I don't know if that was clear earlier. But you do have to be sensitive to that reality with your staff or the people you're working with. And a lot of times I think you have to ask a lot of questions and say, hey, I really want us to finish these mixes on these new singles, hopefully by next week. Is that possible? Luke will almost always say, yeah, oh, totally. And I have to follow up with, like, are you sure? Like, what about this? Like, look at all the dominoes and that need to fall in order for that to happen. I'm not saying micromanage him, but give him permission to be able to say, you know what, actually, we might need to adjust that.
Yeah.
And I do think that's an important thing. Yes, we need to learn how to say no, but if we're leading anyone, we also need to be able to make sure that whatever we're asking them to do, is it reasonable? And you might need to adjust a couple of other expectations in order for those higher priorities to happen.
Yeah, because you have to understand what else is on their plate, right? And so, again, what you're talking about is prioritizing there where, okay, you've got this other stuff you're working on, but we really need to do this. So let's push that other stuff off to the side. That's not as important right now. Let's just leave that a few weeks. It doesn't matter if it doesn't happen now. Let's work on this other stuff. And at least they buy into it now because they don't feel overwhelmed where it's like, okay, I'm trying to do all this, but now you want me to do this as well. And that's way too much. And now I'm going to be living at work. I'm going to be living my work all the time and getting into that point where it's just beyond getting back from,
Yeah, especially if it's if we're talking about content creation. If we're talking about projects that are something does not exist and we're going to create something, whether it's a song or a video idea, whatever, you go down the list. That you can't just force that to happen. We're not just stamping paperwork and pushing it across our desk.
Especially you've got a whole different. Well, and you've got your regular daily responsibilities you're already doing. So this is now something new that you're adding on to that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's I guess where a lot of people don't realize that it's great to take on new projects, but does that going to increase your hours of work now?
Yes.
Where if you're already tapped out and you're already maxed out as far as hours at work, then maybe there's something else you shouldn't be doing or something you should be giving off to somebody else to do for you.
Yep. It makes me think of Bob Goff, that famous quote. Doesn't he quits something like every Tuesday? Or something like that.
Oh, wow.
Because he adds so much to his plate all the time. He's saying yes to so many things. So one of his disciplines is he chooses something to give up like once a week.
Wow.
That's awesome.
Wow, that's crazy.
There you go. Guys, what a great conversation. I really enjoyed hearing all the different perspectives and whatnot. This has been very refreshing, and I think it's a message and something that people need to hear. Especially with all the changes that's happening. And we're coming out of a pandemic. We're coming out of people that have, were forced to work from home, and now they're working from home, and now they're being brought back into the office, and the employer's expectations are changing. The employees' expectations are changing as far as what their role is in the company. And so there's a lot of change happening. And with that change could potentially be a lot of extra work that they're not used to doing, and that could cause, issues like Luke that you've experienced and other people have experienced just like you.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is prime time to get help. Things might start feeling more and more normal. This is prime time. Don't just go along with that temptation to say, okay, now things are back to normal. We can just ignore this and keep going. Now is prime time to get things healthy.
Yeah.
That's right. Good.
Well, guys, thank you so much for chatting.
Absolutely. I really appreciate it. Fun conversation
thanks,
with you guys.
What a great conversation with those guys, man. It was just informative and enlightening and hopeful.
And kind of
all at the same time.
Down to earth, really. Yeah.
Just the reality. And life happens to all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
If you want to find out more about these guys and their ministry and what's going on with them, check them out at their website, rocky.church.
And check out their latest single, Where You Are. It focuses on the importance of cutting out everything that tends to distract us from pursuing God, kind of relating to the end part of our discussion with them anyways.
Mm-hmm. And today we've got artist advice from a very talented young lady, Miss Doe Jones.
You have to keep going. Don't let life steal your song. Don't let life steal your worship. If life and the enemy can get you to close your mouth, then you lose your power. There's power in partnering with God and saying, I am going to continue on this journey because you are doing something, sometimes things that I can't even see or understand. But I have the faith that you're in this and that you're not only making great impact in me, God, but you're going to impact the masses with what you do in me. So just keep going. Stay in it. Stay in the fight.
That's great. It's just what we were talking about.
I was just going to say it so ties in with our discussion with Luke and Nick. Just bang on what she has to say there. Well, there's the music. So obviously it's time for us to go. Really enjoyed our conversation with Luke and Nick from Rocky Worship, and appreciate Doe Jones swinging by again with that advice, just tying everything together for us.
Good times.
What's Ayiesha's expression that she always says?
Cool beans.
Cool beans. Cool beans.
Cool beans. Catch you on the flip side. Cool beans.
Thanks for listening to Faith Strong Today's Between the Grooves podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, would you consider sharing it with your friends, rating our podcast, or giving us some love on your socials to your amazing friends and followers will only help us reach more people. We'd also love to hear from you and share your feedback in an upcoming episode. Send your video or written message to Ayiesha and James on Facebook and Twitter at Between Grooves, or email us anytime, hello@faithstrongtoday.com.